21st, 9 a.m., the Board of 80 County Commissioners are back in session for our final, well, maybe not final, but going
Could
into
be.
our budget deliberations. Day 5, I believe it's day 5, yeah. We have all 3 commissioners with us today, as well as lots of folks in the audience. Welcome, good morning. So Phil, if you'd like to go ahead and take
Sure.
over and guide us through this end of the
Right,
process
we
here.
left off Wednesday afternoon, kind of at a point where we had gone through everything at least once. Many things we went through at least twice. There's a few outstanding items. Just to kind of recapture where we left off, you can see on the screen, right now we do have,
Screen.
We don't have a screen yet, just turn it on.
all right, everybody else does, so give us a moment to get that up.
Just this one.
Is it DP or HDMI? I know, but what when it comes, this comes up, which one?
Oh, it's not.
We want auto?
IT.
This is a ploy by IT to get more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at it.
Is this because we axed that one project manager?
Oh, that's right, it's the hidden button. Did you put it on auto, or which one did you put on, HDMI or auto?
HDMI. Yay, okay.
It's not on HDMI.
All of those work for it, Tony, or just?
Right there, right?
No,
Tony?
that's fine. Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, the second one. Oh, there we go. All right.
All right, in good place,
Ready to
Madam
go?
Chair? Okay.
Yes, we're good.
Now, as you can see on your screens, this is where we left off in terms of the overall. When we completed, you had us add both some money for the master's facility plan based on the presentation by Mitra, and then also added in an offsetting portion related to foregone taxes just to try and balance it. So you can see we were actually right at our limit in terms of the use of foregone to balance the budget right now. I think this morning maybe we'll have continuing conversations, but I just wanted to kind of let you see the overview where we sit at the moment in terms of the numbers and what it really largely is in terms of both the revenue from the foregone taxes as well as the lump sum in the master facility plan that makes up the big, those are the 2 big items that are kind of balancing each other out. But before we revisit that topic, I think it's important. Hopefully yesterday you had the opportunity to convene and get some additional information that you were seeking on some of the other projects. We still have a couple outstanding items to review, and so I'd like to revisit those first, just as a starting point, so if you're okay with that.
Madam Chair, Phil, before we do that, would you
Yep.
humor me and
course.
take out the foregone and the lump sum just to see it without that?
Yep.
No, you gotta take that one out too.
Yep.
Okay,
Here's where we sit,
okay.
minus those 2 items.
Thank you.
So, and we're balanced. Would you like those to go back in?
Back in, please.
Back in.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other humoring before we shift gears?
Oh, there will be much humoring. but,
All right, fair enough. Okay. I'm going to take these in 2 different parts. I'm going to go revisit PBS because I think that's the smaller item. Let's see here. And we have the 1 position in the public defender's office that we left outstanding. This is the office administrator. There was some discussion on that.
We had the opportunity, as for those who are new to this conversation, we started down this path and discussing, it got a little bit too specific. So because we're talking about people, we needed to have a discussion in executive session. Based on that discussion, I'm proposing to say no to this request at this moment, but we'll have the opportunity during the upcoming year to revisit the classification of that position.
Yes, I would agree that we'll go ahead and just keep it at the 84,573.
Okay, so no to that one.
Yeah.
Okay,
No is correct.
okay, and I
And
believe,
then I think we had one more.
More.
The attorney 4, or excuse me, it wasn't attorney 5 that we discussed.
I'm going to scroll
I
down.
think you need to go up,
yeah,
yeah.
No, yeah, keep
which
going up.
office?
The public defender,
Okay.
sorry.
Yep,
Okay, there we go. No,
back down.
Go back down. It was the one in bold.
Yep. Nope, not in bold.
No.
Yes, in bold. Okay. So we realized that there had been a mistake during the budget proposal process and that this attorney 5 is inappropriately classed. So it is an attorney 4.
okay,
And the adjustment is 107. The proposed.
the proposed annual wage is
You
107.
should read 107.
Are we messing with your calculations, Anthony?
No, he's just gonna have to figure out all the
Sorry.
offsets. So I'm gonna
If
put
that's
in,
the only error, not bad.
And it was thoroughly discussed. So I doubt if we change it again.
For the proposed county costs,
Yep.
they'll plug in 129,470.
oops. Does that match what you've got?
And are you able, Phil, to change the attorney 5 to 4 over
Yeah,
there?
yeah, I can change that real quick.
Thank you.
God, what did I do? Don't do that. Okay. Does that look right on the screen, Anthony?
That's what I have.
I'm gonna give you a new number.
Okay.
I think they have a different deferred comp cushion. Sorry, everybody.
That's okay. We want to get it right.
142,310.
Okay. We're good? Okay,
Right.
I'm
Right.
happy.
We're happy you're happy.
all right. Anything else you're aware of on the personnel side?
I think that was it.
That was it? Okay. So
Anything
that,
else outstanding?
I don't think we had anything else outstanding.
yeah, we were checking this morning. I don't think we had anything. All right, on the supplemental side, we have the family homelessness, public-private partnership, and then the corresponding position, the supplemental that's related to that. So I figure we'll just take them together.
Okay. Well, I'll lead us off. So we had an opportunity to discuss some legal questions yesterday, but just to recap for everyone, for all, 10 people who may be watching online. The purpose of this is really to be a placeholder for a potential public-private partnership. Given our budget cycle, something would have to go in now to make that a possibility. But this would be something we would look at in the first quarter of 2020 to do an additional public hearing and vote. So I believe Kathleen's turn was an auditor's encumbrance for this funding. A feasibility study is currently being explored and will be conducted in summer or fall 2019 to determine if the private sector has financial willingness and capacity to support this kind of effort. And then pending the results of that study, if it's positive, we would hold that public hearing. If not, this funding would continue to sit in indigent fund balance, which is a very healthy fund at this moment. For additional information, the proposed potential service model that we would be looking at is something called rapid rehousing, which is an evidence-based intervention tested and recommended by HUD. And that's, a very short version of what will be a much larger conversation should this move forward. So happy to answer any additional questions or listen to thoughts. at this moment.
Thank you. Commissioner Visser?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Lanciando summed it up, I think, perfectly. The key parts were that this money is available already in Indigent Services Fund. The measure that's taken here is a required appropriation so that it is available for this potential finding. And yeah, it fits good. Her explanation is thorough, and I'm good with it.
Okay. I've given this one a lot of thought and probably ask a million questions of legal. Thank you. I just want to make sure that programs like this that are new are equitable, they're good for the community at large, that they're sustainable. I don't want us to go down a path where we can't sustain an effort. I did a lot of looking into the partnerships that we would engage with, and it truly is a community-wide partnership. And I think we have an opportunity here to help that partnership continue to grow and be sustainable. I think the services are warranted. But as importantly, I think for taxpayers, questioning something like this, in my mind, we have to balance these things out. We have to be in the middle. We have to make sure that we're not far left and far right in some of these initiatives that we take up. And I think this one is really right down the middle that anybody can buy into and support. It will save taxpayers money in the long run, and in addition to doing the right thing and helping these folks. So I am going to vote for it. However, I think the $750 is high because we don't have a feasibility study back yet. I'm a little bit cautious how much we earmark for this, so I'm going to suggest that we bring it down to $400, which will be in par with our other new initiative on the regional planning. So that would be my suggestion. Back to you, Commissioner Visser. And leave the 50 in there that is the corresponding position.
Yeah, without going into the math in detail, the justification for the change is certainly there with some speculation. Another point, though, that wasn't brought forward is how beneficial it is to Ada County taxpayers in that this relationship, i.e. public-private, and the leverage that we gain from this, the participation from the private entities will be significantly more than our participation. And it's just like we're a catalyst in this matter. Again, it is so new. The study is still out there. I would consider that change to $400,000. I'd just like to get Commissioner Laciando's reaction to that, please.
I'd like to suggest that we put this to $400 for this year. The services won't even be able to start for at least another year or two, and that we commit, if the feasibility study is positive and we're moving forward with the other consultant position, that next year we budget the additional $400 to make up the difference.
Thank you both. I think your points are well taken. One element I might note, as Commissioner Kenyon noted, the idea is not fully fleshed out. The amount that's needed is not fully fleshed out. All of those components are currently being studied. What we do know is that for any type of fundraising effort, it requires someone or someones to be first in. And so sort of there's a positive peer pressure that exists with these types of efforts. So I would be supportive of taking it down, but I would propose taking it down to 500. I think that's an amount that being able to say $500,000 is more meaningful than 400 in terms of being able to go out there, which is, if it comes back, that's what I would be doing, going out there to secure those additional funds. So that would be my suggestion.
Commissioner Visser?
Do we want to split it? I mean, this is a tough call. I don't have enough
I'm okay.
additional information.
I'm okay with 5 because this is earmarked. We're not going to spend it unless the feasibility study comes back. So I would be okay with 5.
Then I will too.
All right. Sold. And we will have a public hearing on this before anything is spent. And does it put us in the yellow?
No, it actually,
It would
you
help
actually,
some.
it actually helps some
Yeah, our expense went down.
because of where the default was. And then just to
That's right, it was already built
it was
in.
already built in, yeah, just to confirm, the community support coordinator.
Will stay in.
Will stay in, okay. Okay. All right, Commissioners, with that, we have gone through everything. There are no outstanding items that require a decision. Of course, we can revisit any items that are, that either you have included or excluded at any point, if there's any that you want to. At this point, too, looking at the numbers, you know, the goal for our office is to present a balanced budget. So I think the outstanding question here is, because you've had me humor you, as you would put it, in terms of the taxes, where you feel in terms of taxes, specifically that foregone amount. Do you want at this point to propose to have a public hearing to consider independently? Right now, the determination is not whether to take foregone taxes or not, just the consideration of whether we ought to hold a public hearing and make that decision. So we just need a placeholder amount that would be we need the amount as well as the specifics for what that amount would be used for, so that we can notice a public hearing to be held on that topic.
Commissioner Kenyon, Phil, it would be very helpful for me at this point if you are able to pull up the slide that Mitra showed us. Perfect.
Oops.
Well, those are adorable children. Okay. So one of the other things that we talked about earlier this week was the cost of delay.
Right.
And this master facilities plan was started before we got here. There was some decisions made during the last budget cycle to wait on some of these elements. And what are we looking at every year in terms of the cost of delay? I believe you had that. Yes.
There's this
Okay.
slide. Yeah.
So about 1.8 million for the two projects that we're talking about every year for the cost of delay. One of the other pieces that we talked about on Wednesday, was it Wednesday? Yes.
Yes.
This has been such an exciting week. Again, being new to this, but knowing that for 6 or 7 years, the county did not take any of the 3%, is that correct?
There was a 7-year period.
7-year period,
Going
which
back,
is-
it was quite a while ago. Because
Which is why we have such a large foregone balance. It would be helpful to understand, and I know this would be sort of spitballing at this point, but, you know, were we to have worked out some of these projects, say the coroner's office in 2010, 2012, what would the cost of construction have been back in that time frame? Because I think, again, as I mentioned earlier this week, we have to operate on a year-to-year budget cycle, and then even more than that, you know, unfortunately for you all, you get different commissioners every number of years, and so these conversations happen in fits and starts. But I want to understand the bigger picture of what has happened, and what the cost to the taxpayers in the county has been for that, both the 1-year delay and the larger delay over the last decade. Is that something Scott would feel comfortable speaking to, sort of what, in sort of a, I guess, sort of a spitball amount, what would, you know, say we were to have done a coroner's office back in 2012, what would the difference be in construction costs?
Well, in 2010 to 2012, obviously the economy dropped off here considerably. So to make that kind of a choice, I don't know, I'm sorry. I don't know that I would feel comfortable putting a number on it, because it would be a considerable difference, because people were looking for work and looking for projects. And at the time, we didn't have the funding to make that happen, and nor do I think there was some additions being asked for, but I don't think a whole new facility was being asked for at the time either. So it is definitely a necessary need now. They're way out of space, and The community has grown so much, it is definitely needed. I wish I could have a better answer for you, but things dropped off so drastically in this community. That would be a hard number for me to come up with. I definitely can make a couple phone calls and see if I can come up with something for you.
Okay. All right. Well, I think the larger question for me, I'm open to having a public hearing in July to discuss the foregone component. It makes me nervous.
I wouldn't mind. I think the sheriff's here, just coming back up and just giving us just a brief, again, overview of the need. I know you've done this multiple times now, but I'd like it on the record if we're going to have a hearing to look at foregone. I want to make sure that the public out there is aware of what we're up against here with the current capacity.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Happy to answer any questions that you may have about our property. But I think one of the good things is with our commissioners having the financial responsibility to fund our jail and ensure that it's the right property for taking care of our citizens, and you guys having the ability to go through our quarterly jail inspections, I think it narrows that scope for us for you to really see what that need is and what that burden is. But we are creeping up just about 100 inmates a year on our daily population. I think the last number that I don't have my sheets and information in front of me, but I think we're in the 950 to 1,000 inmates a day. And during our presentation, when we talk about having 1,116 beds in our facility, an operational capacity of 949-ish inmates to give us the ability to keep our facility safe, as we all, I don't think there's a citizen out there in Ada County that would disagree that they want our facility to keep people in and keep people out. We did have that little fiasco where we had somebody trying to get inside our facility here recently, but the process worked and our facility worked just as it should. And so we need extra bed space. We need them drastically. Over the last 10 years or so, we have worked with our community partners and with our prosecutor's office, with our public defenders, our judges, to figure out what ways we can ensure that the right people are in jail, and then also the right people have the ability to be not in jail and be out working in programs and services, giving back to the community, providing for their family. And I can stand before you here today telling you that the county has done an incredible job trying to figure that out, whether it's working through our grants or working through with our stakeholders. I stand before you telling you that the people that are in our jail either have some propensity for violence and need to be there as a result of waiting sentencing or whatever that need is throughout their justice system. And the people that we've identified that could be living in the community truly have the ability to do that. And so right now, our bed space is at an all-time need. We are making every effort. I just sent a text message to the director of IDOC this morning. He received a letter last week for him and his organization to get on the good foot and get the people out of our jail that should be in state's custody or never coming into our jail in the first place. And so not to put our legal discussions on the record, that could be an executive session, but we are doing everything we can do with the director of IDOC to either navigate down a pathway of building a common facility where we can co-locate between probation, parole, sanction centers, transition centers, and the Ada County Jail, so that we're providing the best service at the lowest cost to our taxpayers. And I'm pretty confident in everything that we're doing. But it is no secret, we need additional space. Just to speak on a little bit, as you watched in the master facility plan presentation over the last couple of days, one of the discussions is to put Pod E in the back parking lot of our jail. Well, just like the courthouse, every parking space at the sheriff's office is occupied by either a stakeholder coming to use our facility or an employee. And if we were to put Pod E in the back lot, it would take up every one of those parking spaces, at least during the construction phase, but we would lose about 100 parking spots. And so my question is, where do those people park? Do we go buy another lot to park people so that they can come work at the secured facility? And so our recommendation is still, as you heard from the master facility plan in that presentation, to acquire that piece of property to the northeast of us on that Darigold land so that we can move Pod E out there and continue providing that additional bed space so that hopefully for the third year in a row next year, we do not fail our jail inspection.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lachiondo.
I am so appreciative, before coming into this role, and certainly in this role now, of the work that you and your office have done to be thoughtful, be innovative, compassionate, and look at who is in your jail, who needs to be there, and who really doesn't. I'm willing to go forward with this hearing and potentially look at foregone to start moving on this. But what I'm going to need to see in the next month to feel confident in that, and really I think what the community is going to need to see, is some more additional community outreach, or whether it's news stories or presentations about all the work that has been done through the safety and justice work. And not just your office. I need to see the buy-in from the judiciary, from the prosecutor's office, certainly the public defender's office, that we're doing everything possible to make sure. I know you're there. I want to make sure all the stakeholders are there, because I don't want to build additional capacity without having that buy-in. Just for some components, as you know, we have a work release center that is about half full. And you and I know not everybody can be in that work release center given what their potential crimes were. But I do think I still want to better understand that before I commit to using foregone. And I think the community deserves understanding all of those pieces and parts as well. I also would love to, I think it would be very appropriate for us to hear from Director T-Walt about the 120 to 200 people every day that are IDOC's responsibilities that Ada County taxpayers are subsidizing. We're in the situation we're in. You are responding to it, and you're doing a great job. But I think Ada County taxpayers deserve to understand that and understand from the state what steps are being taken to rectify that.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lachiondo, we agree with you. I think over the last couple of years, we've been delivering that message. I think at last count, I think we have done at least 10 or 12 stories through our media, to even taken them into our jail, showed them the programs, showed them the inmates that are spending their time on the floor in one of our cots where we just don't have the right amount of bed space for them. I go back again 5-6 years ago when we started down this journey and recognized that the population of Ada County is booming in all of our areas. That natural tendency is a certain percentage of those people are going to spend some time inside the Ada County Jail. And we wanted to take a hard, deep look at that to make sure that we're not just increasing brick and mortar jail space, but we're also looking at that virtual jail space where we put those people outside the facility, whether those are through a monitoring service, whether it's through a program. And so we do have all of that data. I've got one of the greatest data teams out there, and we can pull that pretty quickly. But we will stand and provide whatever information is needed for you to feel comfortable with your decision.
Sheriff Bartlett, you've talked before about the need for a transition center and the possibility of partnering with the state, with IDOC, on that transition center. Can you speak to the need for the expanded capacity at the jail if we were to go forward and have a working partnership and build a transition center here? Do we need both? And then how does the work release center play into that? What's the difference between the work release center and a transition center?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, yes, we do need both. We actually need all three. And so I'll use, these are my terms when I talk about just by pure population growth, our jail population is growing as well. So we need additional jail bed space. That's priority number one. Number two is the transition center, which is something that Director T-Walt and I have been talking about that they have built, and it's been somewhat successful in other areas where prior to an inmate being released from IDOC, they place those inmates into a transition process to get them acclimated and ready for jail to community transition. Well, that's just currently a one-way ticket. What we would like to see is that transition being both ways. So if somebody is on probation, parole, on supervision by IDOC, if they are arrested or violated on one of their conditions from parole, instead of that person being taken to a local county jail, that person could be taken to that transition center through their process, and if they receive the right counseling, treatment, and or serve time, that's all handled with the in-house. State code clearly states that somebody that is violated as a result of being on parole or one of their programs can be taken to the nearest county jail or to the facility of which they were released. And it is our belief that that's the state of Idaho's responsibility and not the responsibility of the county taxpayers. And so that's that navigation area that Director and I are talking through with your permission to come up with a solution for us to do that together of some sort. And so that's a separate area. And then third, the transition center for us, separate from a sanction center, is that local county jail to community transition center where somebody could be taking classes in our work search program, in our work release center. Instead of taking up prime bed space in our main jail facility, we have a non-secured facility that's agreed upon with our public defenders, our prosecutors, our judges, that this transition center is a place somewhat like our crisis centers here in Boise, not to use the same term, but an area where we in Ada County can provide all of those services, not jail, to those people that so desperately need it. And so there's really, in our opinion, three different buckets that we would like to evaluate. We have the jail, we just need more bed space. We have a work release center where our judges place people there for their sentencing and allow them to come and go depending on their work schedule. We would like to place that transition community center in addition to that. And we actually have space at our facility because you guys were so kind to allow us to go out and get our training center. We have space there where we can put a couple of classrooms in and accommodate that pretty easily if we get our judicial group together and figure out what the right answer is to that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that and appreciate all the work that you're doing with IDOC. Can you refresh my memory without me having to go through my binder and find it, what the operating costs, including personnel, would be for the public safety potty and CCU upgrades? Do you remember?
Operating costs as far as our staff costs? So
And IT, desks, facilities, pretty much all in.
So we come up with a general figure each year through the Idaho Sheriff's Association, depending on staff, bed space, inmate, food, and currently we're right around the $90 range per day per inmate for operational costs. It fluctuates anyway, just depending. I think the last couple of years have been $94, $95, and I think this year is right around $88, $89. But it all depends on the number of inmates in and the number of staff and the amount of space that we're occupying at that time. And that's a number that we provide each and every year to the Idaho Sheriff's Association. To all of our jails have to provide that sheet in.
I believe you accounted in detail for that in the master's facility plan in your
Yes.
project overview. So I'll go back and take a look at that this afternoon. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Visser.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Sheriff, what I'd like you to put together, please, going back to the Pod E scenario, the cost of the Pod E complex on newly acquired property, i.e. the Dairygold property, compared to the cost of putting Pod E on the parking lot in different options. One being that ground level remains parking and you build up. The other being that you put the building there and you seek additional parking within the area.
Certainly, we can provide any of that information.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is a willingness to have the hearing, but we have a lot of work to do over the next month in terms of understanding these various scenarios and what that might look like.
Phil, could we have you go back to that slide? Thank you, Sheriff Bartlett. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Also, Madam Chair, just as you're discussing it, in terms of the timetable, because that's kind of being referenced here, it's our office's recommendation, just whatever we determine today, if there's going to be an additional hearing held, that we look at the possibility, and I think we've consulted with Judy on this, that July 8th would be the preferred time for that, the week of, I guess, yeah, depending on your schedules, but the week of July 8th. That allows some time for us to whatever the determination is out of that hearing, prepare that in advance of the public presentation that's on July 22nd that we already have scheduled. So just to give you time, there's notices and stuff that our office would conduct in between there to make sure the public is aware.
Okay.
But just to add to that, and
So
then
we're gonna go straight out of BOE into, it's
It's
good times around here.
So remind me, where did we leave the second driver's license location?
We took it off
that's correct.
as a part of potential master facility plan, but I don't know that it's included in any of Mitra's information.
I do not believe that it is. Right now, it is out of the CIP process, and in terms of the numbers that you're consulting here, it does not include a second driver's license location.
So it's added in here at 505. I would suggest that we include that in the public hearing. I think that folks, the public, would like to weigh in on this one. I personally have received numerous phone calls and complaints on the lack of a second driver's license location in the long lines. We certainly, there's no commitment, obviously, and so I would just like to put it in just so we can hear from folks to see if it's a priority. So I would say that we move that amount then. My math is correct.
Add it to the
Add it.
foregone total.
Yep, so we're talking about $6,379,590, I believe, Anthony.
Can have that conversation.
I'd like to have the conversation, I'd like to allow the public to have that conversation with us, since it's been a hot topic.
You want me to toss that in here?
Please. Do I have a second?
Yeah, someone else go. for
I
it.
have a second to have the conversation.
the
I'm not,
conversation.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Not convinced we
committed
need
to
it.
it, just
Yeah,
I can have the
I
conversation.
just want to,
Conversation is needed. I just wondered, is that the venue for it? Should we have it separate, maybe with some other
that again.
items? Should we have included it in this already and had public testimony? We can't have it here, we're done with public testimony in this part.
Right.
There's
Right.
not
That's the
really-
only option.
At this
Okay,
point.
if that's the only option, then
Yeah.
we're looking at.
I'd just like to make sure that we allow the public to weigh in on that.
505 what? 280, okay.
290.
You can come up with that $10, Phil.
Yes, I can. It's budget, that's literal budget us.
Okay, Phil, ready? 6379580.
I'm going to ask Judy to look at our calendars right now, so we can pick a date.
Which number?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we're going to have to come back.
Where I was thinking.
Master Facilities lump sum, 6379580.
And then what about foregone?
I had 5.
Exactly our 775 number.
It doesn't have to be exact. It can be-
5563093.
5563.
And Anthony, that number is for what? Why are we changing it?
Because we added the potential driver's license.
That is the least amount of foregone
Okay,
to
no, it's
take
gone down
to
from
take
his other
balance.
number though.
But that's because he put it in the wrong spot.
Yeah, that's because I had added it, exactly. It has gone up from what we had it previously.
Okay.
That is the least amount of foregone we can take to get to 77550.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the least amount of foregone, so you would be using some fund balance to fund these projects. And so something you might consider here, sorry, I'm like doing math on the fly, is actually the question on the driver's license, to your point, in terms of the public hearing. You could fund the driver's license, second location, using fund balance and not have it part of the conversation. You have sufficient fund balance to fund that.
Okay.
If you wanted to try and do that, and then the foregone, you could just use, have the hearing for those big construction projects that clearly are not able to
Would
be
we
funded
need to
with
make
fund
that
balance.
decision today, or could we make that decision during the foregone hearing?
I think, I don't see why you can't make that decision at the foregone hearing. I'm trying to think this, I can't think of a reason that you couldn't make that decision. I think that would be informative at it because you would be saving that fund balance and taking new revenue for it, but there's no reason that you can't do that. So I don't see any prohibition to having that conversation then.
Okay. Like I said, the main reason is, for me, is to allow the public to weigh in on that
Sure.
particular piece. Okay?
Okay.
So what do you need from us at this point? Looks like
Is-
we're going into a foregone hearing.
Is this the, I guess
Yeah.
that's probably what I need more is just direction in
Yeah.
terms of, is this the amount, or, let me rephrase that, are these the amounts that you would like us to
Well,
notice? And
yes,
again,
and
you're not
this-
making a decision here, you're making a
Right.
decision about holding a hearing.
And
on
we
these.
have to be specific about the potential projects. So based on this, we're looking at driver's license, second location, and coroners and jail pod E design costs.
Correct.
And the land.
And those costs that were
Yeah.
presented by Mitra would be the numbers that we use for all three of those
Yes,
projects.
yes for me.
That's
Okay.
Foregone
It's a
hearing.
yes.
Okay.
It's a hearing to have more hearings.
A hearing, yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then otherwise, beyond that piece, we are in balance, so.
Make sure that the COLA and merit is what you want to
Okay.
do. Just
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
to
that
wrap
would be
up,
great.
because
Yeah.
That early on,
Yep.
and just
I
to,
feel that we would, of course, love to do even more on the COLA and the merit. Looking at the capital projects that we have, the facilities that we need to fund, I think that the 3% is fair and pretty decent. Knowing that we would like to do more, but we're so far behind on these other major projects that I think that I'm good with where we're at right now.
And you're good with the distribution as well? I think that's one of the
Yes.
questions. Just to make sure.
It would be informative for me, plug in 2% COLA, just to see.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's about
Put it back.
1.4 million. Is that about right, Anthony?
Yeah, it's 1.38, I mean, it's that number right there to the side.
1.4.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. That, in terms of, Commissioner Visser, to your question, when I meant distribution was the 2% merit and 1% COLA, or any, or any other parameters that you have in terms of how that's going to be distributed.
Let's plug in 1.5
For the COLA?
COLA.
Okay.
I don't know, so I guess,
Let's plug in 1.2.
Uh,
Hey, I want to give them some more. I really
Because-
value our
Any
employees.
dollar you add will put you in the yellow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because of how we have balanced it with the others,
Okay.
any dollar you
I'm
add,
trying. I really value all of our employees.
again, you could adjust that foregone amount that would offset it. That doesn't mean you're necessarily taking foregone for that purpose, because the foregone doesn't balance with those other projects right now.
All right, I'm good with where we're at.
and before we leave, the foregone hearing, so the 2 design costs, the second driver's license, does it also include the land?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
We're good? Anything else?
Just one addition, my position on the wage increases was 3% for merit, 0 for COLA,
Okay.
based on the history that we've had with Cassie and the
And the use
high
of COLA.
starting salaries.
okay.
Do you want to change your opinion on that?
I don't at this time.
Okay.
And I like it the way it is.
Okay. Are there any other items that you would like to revisit at this point, or are you prepared to
Anything else?
proceed to the hearing on the foregone taxes?
Not that I'm aware of.
You're good, it's Friday.
I
let you handle it.
really appreciate all the work all the departments have done, all the work that your office has done to help walk us through this process to get us there. This has been tough, but interesting and informative, and we'll look forward to the next step.
Definitely appreciate everyone's efforts. And moving forward, we've been in office for 5 months, and we didn't have a lot of time going into this budget cycle. And just so everyone is aware that we'll do a debriefing on this with all the appropriate parties at the table. But we'd like to be a lot more, I think, inclusive and using workshops leading up to this process, working more one-on-one with each department ahead of time. So we don't have to take all of the budget presentations is really the first time we're hearing all of this. We want to be much more prepared going into this next year. So you'll be hearing from us early on in the process. It doesn't mean you have to put together anything earlier, but I think that you'll find that as we walk through this process together more collaboratively and engage more, it'll be easier for everyone. So thank you all for your hard work and your efforts. We really appreciate it. And I think we have a balanced budget.
Okay, and I just want to walk you through next steps. So I know your piece here is done. You guys will be shifting over to the Board of Equalization. During that time, our office will be doing a lot of work to figure out the details on how to make this function. That's where our tax is going to go. Where's the fund balance going to be pulled for what projects? So we'll be developing our budget packet that we can share with the public, really all in preparation for that public presentation on July 22nd. So I'll also be visiting, probably may consult with you, but also with all the offices and departments just to get some additional information so we can best explain to the public what are some of the highlights, the big items in the budget, so that the public understands what is it we're funding, not just these, we'll have the hearing on foregone, but what are some of the other highlights of the budget that we'll be working on. So a lot of work will be going behind the scenes. And then we will we'll work with Judy to set up the hearing and everything and get the notices out for the foregone hearing. And then after that, whatever the conclusion is that is, we'll incorporate that into that public presentation and budget packet. And then at that point, just kind of moving forward on July 31st, we already have scheduled where we'll meet with you. This will just be upstairs to adopt the tentative budget. At that point, the budget becomes locked down, and the only adjustments that can be made before a final budget is adopted is it can be reduced. But at that point, no new revenue, no new expenses can be considered.
Understood.
Yep, we're now it's kind of shifting gears to meet all the statutory deadlines so we can get it to the tax commission by the deadline set by statute.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, thank
and your
you very
team as
much,
well.
Phil.
Kathleen, Anthony, appreciate
Yes,
all your
and
work
team.
on this.
And thank you everyone
Cassie,
else for,
Meg, being here through the whole process.
Yeah, we appreciate your patience. I know this is not easy, and we appreciate the patience and the work of everybody, just like you guys have referenced, to get to this point. This is a big decision for the county once a year, so it's important that we make sure we get it right.
Okay, I will declare budget deliberations adjourned. Wish I had a gavel. Thank you.